I want winners. I want people that want to win.
Hey, everybody. Thank you for checking out We Want Winners. We're up a little bit later, about an hour later than usual. I had some family over, and we were watching the end of a very sad Warriors game there. But the 49ers game, we were left happy, so that is a good thing. So introducing my co-host here, Roderick Adams. What do you think? Sunday Night Football. The Niners got to show some stuff in the limelight, the biggest rating, the biggest rated football game of the week. How do you think they did?
Overall, it was good. We got in, which is most. I came in. I had to temper my expectations. It's exciting to have all these toys now, but this was the first time that we've had them all together. With CMC, Deebo, and the whole assortment, the gang all back, Jennings and everybody. So you want to see them put on a show, but this is going to be a work in progress, I think, for the rest of the season.
Yeah, ultimately, they played Niners football for one. So they did all the things they wanted to do on offense. Defense struggled on the first few drives, but otherwise just dominant, after the second quarter or so. So really good stuff for them. I think Rod's screen is glitching again. Rod, why don't you maybe do a restart, and I can kind of hold the show until you get back, because there's the similar delay that we were having earlier. So Rod's gonna figure it out. He's gonna get back on the computer, and I'll kind of go through some of the points that I was gonna go through before Rod had to jump off there. Okay, so the first point for me, and this is a real important thing, which is over the first what was it, 8 weeks until the bye week, 49ers fans had an excuse for, why were they only 4-4? Well, we had injuries, and there was that game in Atlanta where Rod reminds us all that, they didn't have 7 starters, and so that's why they lost. And these little things that keep happening. And for the first game since the opener, I think since the opening game of the season, it was the no excuses game. I really felt that this was the first time all season where they threw out their team and they were like, okay, there's no ifs, ands, or buts here. It's literally about how well they play, how well they prepared. They had a bye week, and it was ultimately what they did on the field tonight. And if you watched the first quarter, really like the first quarter and a half, maybe, they seemed to be slow out of the gate from the bye week. And, there were glimpses of things here and there. And then, a penalty here, or, there was the fumble, the Ayuk fumble, which more unfortunate than careless. I think the helmets, hitting the ball, and there was a little helmet to helmet action on that play. And we'll talk about that when Rod gets back on, because I know he's got some thoughts on the helmet to helmet by Greenlaw that got him kicked out of the game. But really, no, you couldn't say, well, if the 49ers lost this game, you couldn't say, hey, we lost X. It's literally nope. There's still a couple of starters out, but this was the most healthy they've been all year long since the opening week. And I think they sort of figured it out. It was at halftime, obviously, but there was some stuff, and we'll talk about the turning point when Rod gets back on. But when it comes to the way that and really it's been the last couple seasons, the injury bug, some penalties, missed opportunities. There was I know there was the Robbie Gould missed extra point, which had 49er fans definitely and rightfully wondering, like, uh-oh, here we go again. Is this going to happen again? And so, it was just it was just one of those things where you're like, okay, can they settle the storm? And they did. And ultimately the no excuses game was perfect because they came back and they won and they played the way that you would have expected them to play, and that fans were hoping. And I think some fans probably thought maybe they should have ran away with this game a little bit, but they didn't, and it was because of the way that they play. They had 41 rushes, which we'll talk about in a little bit. As Shelvin says, we did everything wrong in the first half. Some of it kind of unfair in a sense where with the helmet to helmet play and with the fumble, where those are more like kind of quirky plays than actual mistakes, I think. But yeah, so the second point, what was the turning point? What was the turning point of this game? And for me, the turning point was the Dre Greenlaw helmet to helmet play. And that seemed to frustrate Shanahan and the team. You saw Greenlaw when he saw what happened. He kind of went like this and grabbed his helmet because he knew what was possibly happening. And I think he's got a little bit of a reputation. I think because he's got a couple of those penalties this year where he's using his helmet as a battering ram of sorts. And Rod and I were kind of making fun of it over the last week. The podcast that we did on the bye week, we were like, the penalties have been down. And then I said, yeah, why? Because Dre Greenlaw's not on the field. And that was a joke. It didn't mean, what I didn't necessarily think that he was someone who makes a lot of mistakes, but he's just been flagged this year in inopportune times. I think the Chicago game was the one I think of when I think about that. And so that the Niners kind of came together after that moment. They Shanahan had the quote, and I forget who the sideline reporter was, but she was explaining how, he basically said, I couldn't believe it. It's unfortunate. But in the midst of saying all of those things, he was also throwing out some expletives and F-bombs and such. So I really do think that was the turning point. You had somebody who is finally back in Greenlaw. He was, all these guys who get hurt, they just can't wait to get back on the field. And for him, he was like ready to play. He's fired up. Sunday night, big lights. Like I said, the biggest rated game of the season, or of the week, actually. And he was so sad that he was going to get flagged for this play in which the quarterback, Justin Herbert, is running, and then he gets hit. And because he is hit, he lowers his head right into Greenlaw's target where he's trying to make the tackle. I don't think that Greenlaw obviously was trying to hit his helmet with his helmet. That play still happens sometimes just because of how violent football can be. But I think the one thing that the referees and when they talk about it and they analyze how the referees did, and this did go to New York, like they kept saying, is the fact that his head was down. And a lot of times when those plays happen, the head is down, and you don't really see where you're hitting. So it's sort of a reckless play. And I think if his head is up a little bit, they probably don't flag it, even if it does make that helmet to helmet, face mask to face mask collision. So unfortunate for him. I think he had it was an Instagram story that was just a message, white letters on a black screen that said something to the effect of "free me." Now, I don't know if that is the sentiment for this kind of penalty, but I'm sure he feels super frustrated about it. But yeah, that was unfortunate. And there was a lot of inconsistent analysis where Tirico and Collinsworth are sort of explaining it, where the guy that comes in and explains things is explaining it, and then you go and see Tony Dungy, and he's like, "No, that's not a penalty. Like, you got to give the guy, Herbert is running as a running back, and he is knocked in to the other guy's helmet, essentially. And yeah, so unfortunate for Greenlaw, but I do think that was where the 49ers and Shanahan were like, screw this. Like, we cannot let this let this game get away. Like, sometimes when you're at home as well, you have this opportunity to play in front of your fans. Again, I'm going to bring it up again. Sunday night is a big deal in the NFL. And the thing for those guys is that, you're so fired up and you're so hyped up. And as a team, you're looking bad on your home field coming out of the bye. And I think that just kind of got them to go together. Supposedly, Shanahan's halftime speech was something to the effect of, let's pretend they're the Rams, which kind of a shot at the Rams, like the poor Rams. Sean McVay's just like, what did we do to deserve that? Oh, well, they did lose to the Arizona Cardinals today. So, but so, yeah, I don't know. Shanahan is Shanahan an inspiring coach? Is he the one who is, doing the fiery halftime speech to get he seems a little bit more, sort of like the kind of coach or the teacher who just sort of expects you to be better and will inspire that way. But maybe this is what happened was that play, the poor play in the first half, and then them needing to win this game. And really, look, they have to. Rod and I went over the schedule in the last podcast that we did. And if you're going to make the playoffs, you got a good team in San Diego. You are home. And this is a game that you got to win. You got to win this game against a good team. Next week, I think, who did they have next week? I'll bring up the schedule here in a second as we look for toward the future. But it's a game that they had to win. I'm sure they circled it, and it was like, okay, this is a statement game. We need to show how good we are when we are fully healthy. And that seemed like a big deal. It seemed like a really big deal for them to go out and win this game. So, another point here, they ran the ball 41 times to 28 pass attempts. And that is a ratio that I'm sure that they really loved, because that's the way that they play. And, the whole buildup to this game was about how poor San Diego is against the run. And against the 49ers, that's kind of like okay, that's the bullseye. That's the target. And you saw, and Collinsworth kept talking about this during the game. He kept saying that, okay, now there's 4 defensive linemen, and now they're bringing up a 5th defensive lineman, and now here comes a 6th defensive lineman, because they just couldn't stop the Niners from running the game. Now, the Niners didn't have gaudy running stats. They only averaged 3.8 carries or 3.8 yards per carry. Some of that was late, where they tried to get McCaffrey out on a I think it was a sweep, and he lost like a few yards, and they did a couple of those. So, without the negative plays, they're probably a little better, but still 41 for 157. I'm sure they'll take that, but it's not like, they were running the ball down their throat for 6 and 7 yards every carry. I mean, I think it's Elijah Mitchell, right? Like, Elijah Mitchell comes in, and Rod and I talked about this last week. Jeff Wilson is a really good player, and I was a little worried that, you lose a guy like that who's kind of a leader in that group and such a consistent player. And you're banking on Elijah Mitchell being healthy, and he has not been healthy. And he looked great tonight. He only had a long of 12, and really the longest run that they had from the line of scrimmage was 15 by Deebo, who it was great to see him get back in the mix there a little bit with the positive yards and the possibility of breaking that big play. But Elijah Mitchell, 18 for 89, 4.9 average yards per carry. I think we got Rod back.
Hey,
what's up?
Where are we at?
All right. I was kind of going through my points, but I'm going to circle back because I do want to ask you a couple questions about what I was talking about. But your stream sounds great.
Awesome.
So I think we're good. But So my buddy Randy, he was at the game tonight. He's got season tickets. He's got really fun tickets in the end zone. He's taken me a couple times. He said it's as loud as he's ever heard it in Levi's
Wow.
for Sunday Night Football. That's great.
That's awesome. So yeah, they got all lathered up. They was able to tailgate all afternoon, and yeah, that's awesome. That's good to hear. Cause I've only been once, and I've heard things about how it's not as it's kind of a different crowd
Yeah.
than the Stick was. So that's good to hear that we were in full voice tonight. That's great.
Yeah, no. We eventually, you and I got to get out to a game together. That would be pretty fun.
Yeah.
But I haven't been out this year so far. But I was talking to my son because he was over. He came over. It was about the second. I think he got there right about when the second half started, and we were trying to figure out. We were like figuring out what game we wanted to go to, and I was like, "Gosh, do they have any more night games?" Because to me, the night games are the most fun at Levi's, just because how the sky looks and the stadium's just buzzing and everything. But they don't. I think this is their last night game, at least at home. But they have some fun matchups coming up. I kind of circled Miami and Tampa. I think those would be 2 fun games to go to.
Definitely. Definitely.
Yeah, we'll see. I may. Okay, so I started out the show talking about this was a no excuses game. Everybody's back. It's the bye week. They got all of their injured players except for a couple of them. Their defensive line is still hurting a little bit. And this was the game where at the end, if they lost, 49ers fans, we couldn't say, well, they lost because of X injury, right? And man, in that first half, I was trying to find out. I was like, man, what are the reasons? Just they weren't playing fantastic. And then they did turn it on, and I really enjoyed watching that defense come together in the second half. But what do you think? Thankfully they won, but what do you think the shift or the mentality would have been had they played the second half like the first half? I think it could have been a pretty defeated experience for the fan base and for the team because of the fact that you're like, we got all of our guys back. We got CMC, Elijah Mitchell, Deebo. We got all of these players. And here we are losing to San Diego and not looking good in that first half.
Well, I mean, I do agree with the graphic that it's a no excuses game, and I don't want to be making excuses, but it kind of reminds me of the Heatles when LeBron and Bosh and Wade came together. That first 10 to 20 games was a bit rough. I went and saw them. I was living in Vegas at the time, and I made the sojourn up to Utah to go see
Wow.
them play the Jazz. And it was a choppy game. They just didn't, it was a lot of, and I know basketball is different, but it was a lot of deferential. Who's gonna take the shot? No, you. Oh, no, you, LeBron. You take the. No, you, D Wade. You go ahead and you. So it was just it was they were just trying to figure it out, and I would imagine with Kyle, it's going to be a little of that for a while, is trying to figure out how you deploy each of these guys to their maximum. Because you want to obviously get all these guys touches. I was sitting there, like halfway through the first half, like, oh, Deebo hasn't got any targets. So I imagine as a play caller, you have to try to kind of, get into the rhythm of the game. But then you also, I would imagine at a certain point, you have to be cognizant of who's getting touches and who's not. And you're trying to, integrate Mitchell back in. It's just so I think it's going to be a work in progress for a while. But everybody looked real good. Mitchell looked really good when he got the ball. CMC is a stud. Deebo is a man. Ayuk is out there balling. Jennings looked great. It is it's a embarrassment of riches. So I think that's gonna be the story as we move forward. Through the second half of the season is everybody getting their touches and being integrated and being used to their you know maximum.
So our guy Rick Feinberg wanted us to talk about the Greenlaw ejection, and
Oh my
I
god.
do want to talk about that
Ugh.
because to me, I thought that was the turning point of the game. Now it's not the turning point of the game where it's like a play that brings the team together. I think they were pissed. I think they were pissed that Greenlaw got kicked out of this game. You even saw there was, I think, the outside of the rules guy, the color guy that played, Chris and Tarico and even Tony Dungy. They were like, I'm not so sure about that because the guy he was a runner and he got hit into Greenlaw's face mask, right into his helmet. And Kyle supposedly, had an expletive-laden frustration about it. Supposedly, he had a halftime speech. Now, I don't know if we've ever heard of Shanahan being like this rah-rah guy. He's more of like the disappointed teacher. That's how I kind of feel.
Mm-hmm.
But he basically said, hey, we got to pretend like these guys are the Rams and we got to come out and play like we play against the Rams. And so all of those things, I think kind of got them together in this weird way. They're kind of playing for Greenlaw. They thought it was not necessarily it was definitely a penalty, but not one in which he should immediately get booted from the game. I think some of this is starting to be rep with him because we kind of joked about it last week about how the defensive penalties have been down, and I had said yeah, because he's been hurt, and we kind of laughed about it. But I do wonder if there's some of that, like he's got this rep a little bit of kind of hitting with the helmet a little bit and such. So I thought it was a turning point though. What did you think about that play? And what did you think about sort of the way that they came back from it? Because Herbert had to go out of the game. And because if he stays in the game, maybe they get 6 instead of 3. He's got to come out of the game, and they kick the field goal right before the half.
Yeah, and Daniel was under assault.
Yes.
But
Collinsworth was like, I think you just maybe take a knee right here, like maybe stop trying to make a play.
This is something you see at the lower levels all the time. It is okay by rule, it's a penalty. I don't necessarily agree because he's coming full speed. The angle completely changes based on the pinball action that happens ahead of it. So there definitely was no intent, but his face mask does hit his face mask. So by rule, it's a penalty. You can't argue that. But there was absolutely no intent. So I think that the disqualification definitely his reputation has to play into that because you cannot, as Troy mentioned at the at the league office, you cannot make a case in court that he intentionally lowered his head and in the course of a football act to make that play. The evidence just isn't there for that. So I think that was really excessive, and it would not surprise me if the Players Association is able to get the whatever the penalty is for the disqualification rescinded because I think it's BS. But I do agree with you that it seems like it lit a fire under the defense. They because they came out, they pitched a shutout in the second half. And I think overall they played really well. Justin Herbert is a baller. That dude is good. And he made some plays, but They did a real good job. I haven't looked at the box score really, but watching the game, I got the impression that they did a fairly good job of bottling up Eckler, and yeah, that they everything they got was on. He made some throws that were just unbelievable. So that was that. So, but I thought the defense, especially in the second half, I don't. There was football is a game. Circling back to just watching the game and the criticism on a down to down basis from this fan base, from snap to snap. Football is not the type of game that you can have a referendum on your coordinator, your defense, your offense on a snap to snap basis. Oh, they didn't get the first down, so they suck. I mean, it's just not that. There's ebbs and flows throughout the game, and you just kind of have to ride it out. And then the way I try to do it, and not to say that's the right way, but it's one way, is then once it's over, you can go back and take a big picture view of all of it. Trying to do it in the moment, play by play, is just, I mean, I don't think that's a great way to go about it. That's just my opinion.
Sure. No, I think that's fair. I think if you are a Shanahan, if you are not a big Shanahan guy, I think there's a lot of kind of second guessing some of these plays where fans think that he may be getting a little cute, or maybe he thinks he's ahead of the defense, and then it doesn't work. Now, I don't have a problem with him kind of going with what works. I just think sometimes he may even outsmart himself with
That's fair.
some calls.
That's fair.
But there was only maybe one occasion in this game where I thought, okay, maybe that wasn't the right play call. I thought he was really good. Now, that doesn't mean that we're going to win this game by 20 points by him being really good, because we're going to talk
Mhm.
about that in a second, which is they ran the ball 41 times, and this is
Mhm.
what they do. Elijah Mitchell, he was more of the workhorse than CMC was. They were pretty close in carries, but Mitchell had 18, CMC had 14. Christian was only at a 2.7 average. Mitchell was almost at a 5. Some of that with Christian late was him kind of getting caught in the backfield when they knew that the 49ers were trying to run out the clock.
Mhm.
So, but still not a fantastic game from him, but he did get the touchdown. He runs hard. He's so fast, and they utilized him out of the backfield, 4 for 39. He picks up first down, so that was great to see. But 18 for 89 for Elijah, man, he looked quick.
He looked fresh.
He looked strong. And if we get that guy, man, what a twosome. Now, I think my worry, especially, and probably a lot of other people, is you even read the stat last week, is that he only plays in about 50% of the games so far in his career. So that's going to be something to watch. But with him getting 18, Christian getting 14, nobody's getting 25, which is good for their legs, which is good for their body. And even Deebo, I thought Deebo looked fresh as well running. He had the highest average per carry, 6.8, had the longest at 15 yards on one play. And, then you had Jimmy trying to get out there and run. And my guy, he
Ugh.
played well today, but his feet are cement.
Yeah.
He's slower than ever right now.
Yeah.
But he's still good. I mean, my favorite Jimmy is quarterback sneak Jimmy, and he got a touchdown. So that was good. And
They cheated him on that first one.
yeah.
They cheated him on that first one.
But ultimately, running the ball 41 times, that's what they like to do. And I don't know what the win-loss record is when they run for that, 35 times or whatever, but it's got to be really good.
Yeah. And I have to acknowledge up front that is, for someone who grew up, my first teams were the Walsh teams, and it's West Coast offense, and kind of pass the ball to run the ball, and that short swing pass is kind of like an extension of the run game. All of that. I grew up on that. But I'm telling you, Harbaugh he converted me. I am a physical with a PH guy. I love running the ball. And I I am with Kyle on this. And if you can do that, it just sets not only are you able to control the clock, keep your defense fresh, and all of those things, but it sets a tone. It sets a tone for the type of team that you are, and it's a physical football team, and I love that. So if there are times when the offense kind of stalls because that's what we are going for. You see that I see that other places like in Atlanta, for example. Arthur Smith, even if they are averaging 2 yards a carry, that dude is going to continue to run the rock because that is just philosophically what he believes. He's got Drake London and Kyle Pitts, and he's still going to run the ball 30 times a game. And philosophically, I believe in that. So that's why probably I'm more of a Kyle defender than most. But I understand the frustration and the criticism.
Today being negative on Kyle is a nitpick. Like this, it's a nitpick when you look at the whole resume of what they did tonight. And like you said, it's going to take him some time too to figure out certain scenarios. There will be opportunities for maybe more multi-backs, more two-back sets with Mitchell and McCaffrey together. I think we may have seen it once or twice tonight. But there's going to be lots of things that and they're going to save some stuff for specific teams and that stuff. So ultimately, again, I've used that word ultimately a bunch of times, but you look at the end result, which is a W at home against a playoff team or a team that could be in the playoffs like San Diego, and you come away overall just saying like, okay, they got one.
One thing I was glad to see before we move on is the fact that with Mitchell and CMC in the backfield, that we haven't completely gone away from even as a look having Deebo back there. Because I think that obviously you don't want to. Our fear, before CMC got here, is that we would overuse him in that role. But now being able to just sprinkle him in here and there, I think is the perfect scenario.
Okay. This is an offshoot of this question. I tried to keep it to 3 points, but I had a question here. Are you worried at all about the lack of production from Deebo and Kittle in the passing game specifically? Because Kittle had one catch today, 21 yards. It was a great play. Deebo had 2 for 24. He had 6 targets, only 2 catches. And Ayuk is the guy. Him and Jimmy, they have it all rhythmed up. He was 6 for 84. He had the one fumble, which was really just an unfortunate play. He got spun around right into somebody's helmet. And Juwan Jennings 4 for 40, and he got a first down, and he flexed on him today. Even Ray probably was the recipient of Jimmy's best pass, which was that 33-yard completion where he actually had to step up and scoot a little bit.
He showed a little mobility on that play.
But it's not there with Deebo and Kittle right now. Are you worried at all?
Well, I think what it really shows is our passing game, if we are in a position, and it was a clear example of it today, is if we are in obvious passing downs, we have a problem. Their best rusher is going to be on the right side, and McGlinchey is going to struggle. So in order for us to pass, we need to be able to establish the run so that we can play play action. That's been spotty. And, the fact is, if Jimmy is under duress, the whole thing gets kind of squirrely. And I think that's where we're at, is our pass protection just still isn't quite where it needs to be. And, when he has to just stand shotgun and be back there, to me, it just feels like he is not comfortable at all. And it really feels like in a really, really short period of time, he has, you know, CMC is kind of a safety blanket, and Ayuk those are the places it looks like when he's uncomfortable, that those are the places that he's um going with the ball. So it's and so it means that Deebo and Kittle are Kibo
There you go.
Kibo they're out of the loop. So again, I'm gonna go ahead and chalk that up to being a work in progress, and that hopefully, you know, we are able to come along. And do we get, I don't know if it was, I think it was probably Shelvin. I'm sure it was Shelvin now, that kind of suggested that maybe we end up seeing, kind of a platoon system at right tackle, like we're
Mhm.
seeing at right guard with McKivitz and McClinchy. Um, and maybe even just on passing downs, we just bring McKivitz out there and let him take a shot at pass protecting, because it really, really does seem that it's kind of in Mac's head at this point. Um it's not good when the whole world knows that we're going to be dropping back. He's just perpetually getting worked. And that's a problem. It's a problem. There's no question.
And Mac was specifically going at him like that was a matchup that they wanted. And McGlynn, there was one where Jimmy got sacked, and then there was a bootleg where it wasn't really McGlinchey's fault.
Yeah.
That was another, and then there was one where he kind of got pushed back into Jimmy, which caused Jimmy to throw early on something. But yeah, it was a rough couple of sequences there. But when you can run 41 times, and that is more his style, they're fine. But in a game where it's a little bit back and forth, you're talking about coming from behind. Yeah, that's not going to be a
That's
great
a
look for
problem.
him. That's going to be a problem.
But
The
that's not, that and but I am resolved in Jimmy is who he is. And if we are able to establish and play a game script that plays to his strengths, we can win. We can win a whole lot of games with him at quarterback. It's
Mhm.
just when we place him in a position to do things that are outside of his skill set and strengths is where we have problems. And obviously the other team, they get paid too. So what they want to do is put us in those positions where we have to ask Jimmy to do things that aren't Jimmy's strengths.
Yeah.
So that's going, as we move forward, that's going to be the push pull, is to try to keep the game scripts in Jimmy's favor. Because, as big a critic as I am of his, when you're playing to his strengths, and when he's playing to his strengths, the things that he does well, he does really well.
Mhm.
And I really do like the fact that, he is confident when he's throwing the ball to McCaffrey. And he's really confident when he's throwing the ball to Ayuk. It's just we need to figure out a way to get him where we can put Kittle and Deebo into those same situations where he is feeling comfortable. For me, McLeod and Gray, their strengths just don't align with Jimmy's strengths. You know, Down the field type, fly pattern type things just aren't. I mean, that's not his game. It's not going to be his game. So, you might want to try him to keep the defense honest,
Yeah.
but I'm not expecting Jimmy to be, you know, a 20 plus passer, efficient 20+ yard down the field passer. At this point, I mean, it's 6 years now. We know who he is.
I would have liked to see him take a shot. It didn't happen. I don't think he threw a ball. Maybe that Ray play was probably I think it was the longest play of the game for them. I want to see. I wanted them to take a shot. They didn't.
Yeah.
The thing that I want to commend him for. There were no Jimmy balls today. There were no Jimmy throws. He didn't throw into coverage. There was no tip passes that were hanging up in the air forever for the defense to go and grab. He did something today that Alex Smith used to do very well, which is if nothing is there, throw it in the dirt, throw it in the ground, kill the ball. We got it. We got another opportunity, which caused a couple of 3rd and longs, which is usually his kryptonite. And he hit those plays with Ayuk and with Jennings, which was big for him. But I appreciated him not taking sacks and not throwing into coverage where the ball was up in the air. I was like, I'm fine with you throwing at the feet. Like let Kyle call a play to get some space and then let's convert. Like that's a sort of a trust in Jimmy in himself to kind of be able to get back in there and do it again instead of everything having to be like this urgent, miraculous, heroic play. I like that. He only had 9 incompletions all game long. Now the yards per attempt were probably not terrific for him, but still that they moved the chains, and when you run 41 times, he doesn't have to be Dan Marino.
See, the thing of it is, my frustration always with Alex Smith was he was the king of on 3rd and 9 throwing a 4-yard pass. He was great at that. But on this particular team with the ability to run after the catch, that's not the most horrible thing in the world. Just get it in Deebo's hands. Just get it in CMC's hands, and let's see, maybe get it in Kittle's hands, and maybe they'll make a play. So in this particular circumstance, it's not like he's throwing to Anquan Bolden. It's so it's different. It's different. So if you can just with this assortment of talent, if you can just keep the ball in play, get it to them, preferably in a position where they can keep running with the ball, and don't put the ball in harm's way, then that's fine. A punt is fine. A punt is good. We can't turn the ball over. That's just death.
All right, here's a question that I asked our group that Rick is also interested in. It's about OBJ. I think he put a list out of like the 6 teams or whatever that he's interested in playing for. I think the Niners are on that list. And adding him, I don't know if you add someone like him, he's the talent of, I don't know if he's a number 1 anymore, but talent-wise, he's definitely a number 2 on this team. I don't know where you would slot him. In the beginning, he would have to kind of, learn the playbook and kind of probably play more in 4 receiver sets. But in this scenario, it's a little bit about keep away because the Niners are pretty smart about the cap. But I don't know. I'm just thinking like, we're just talking about Jimmy having these safety valves, and this guy has great hands, and he could be another one of those things. But then it becomes, like you said, an embarrassment of riches. That's less snaps for Jennings if OBJ is on the field, maybe less snaps for Kittle as well in certain situations. So thoughts on adding OBJ?
From a football standpoint, does it make sense? No. Where do we roster him? Where is he gonna play? Where do like you say, it affect there really aren't any snaps for him right now, and there really isn't a roster spot for him. To obviously he's a better player than Jeff Wilson, but that's the problem with why we moved on from Jeff Wilson. He wasn't going to play, but you could make the case with all the injuries and things that you just mothball him, and to hell with him and his free agency. You just mothball him, roster him, in case of emergency break glass type thing. But there wasn't a roster spot to do that. Where is the extra roster spot going to come from? We have depth problems at defensive line, so we're not going to shorten that. What unit do you short in order to keep a fifth running back? Doesn't make any sense. Same thing with the wide receiver. Where are you going to short? Safety. I mean, DB, linebacker. There's no place to keep him. So it doesn't make any football sense. But would I do it? Hell yeah. I mean, it's just money at this point. Write a check, Jed, bring him on, and then that's what you pay Kyle to do, is to figure all of that out. Because I am all about just acquiring talent. Have as many of them as you can, because it's an attrition sport. And just like with the Rams last year, they signed him actually before Wood got hurt. And in the fact that Wood got hurt and then he was just there was just good fortune on their part. And in this game, you just never know. You never what would look like a just an embarrassment of riches could suddenly turn into a need in one or two plays. Plus, I don't want to play him in the Super Bowl. I don't want to play him in the divisional round. I don't want to see him on the Giants. I don't want to see him on the Cowboys. I don't want to see him on the Chiefs. I don't want to see him on the Bills. So I'd rather have him here and figure out some way to keep all these people happy than to have him go somewhere else. But it doesn't make any sense.
Herbert could have used him because he was missing guys today.
For damn sure.
I wonder if they could, because Deebo lines up at the backfield, because you have Juice, maybe you don't need that third running back, and that could be some space offensively. But yeah, you're right.
We saw it today. TDP was inactive. The thing has been from the very beginning. That was what happened with Trey Sermon.
Mhm.
Is of all of those backs, they were willing to risk waiving him with the hopes that maybe he would clear waivers and be able to be practice squad eligible. They don't believe that if they put TDP or Jordan Mason out on waivers, that they're going to make it back to the practice squad. That I don't know, league intel being what it is, I don't know, but they seem to have a strong feeling that those guys are. And I have, you see the way Jeff Wilson is balling. There's, I don't doubt that people look at our backfield and they're like, shit, if we can get one of those dudes, we'll grab them up and see if they can ball. Because we have a good track record with, running back. So I have no doubt that those dudes, we'd be risking losing one of those guys if we did that. But again, I'm playing fantasy football.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
no kidding.
And there was a time this season where Willie Snead was activated, and he was the fourth.
That's real real talk. So it can happen in a blink of an eye.
Yes. All right, let's go player of the game. I'll let you go first here. Do you know? And this is just, I'm just looking at the stat sheet. Dre Greenlaw only played half of this football game, and he still led the team in tackles and in solo tackles. He was balling before he got kicked out.
He is a monster. That's really, really good. I don't know. This is a tough one for me. Christian has to be in the conversation. I don't think Jimmy is. I mean, I don't think that would be crazy.
I think
If you
he's
wanted to
probably
say,
in like the top 2 or 3.
yeah, I don't think that's.
I have one. I'll let you think about it a little bit. I
Mm-hmm.
have one guy that stands out to me, and these stats aren't gaudy, but he was leading this defense in the second half. He's on the camera wherever the ball is, making plays. He had 3 pass defenses today. Fred Warner, 7 tackles, but especially late in that game when that pass rush was not Herbert was not comfortable, and he was just kind of trying to throw the ball to where receivers might be. And you saw Fred Warner. There was almost Fred Warner almost had a pick 6 at the end there because he just knew where the ball was going. He was right on top of I think it was the running back. But I think I would go with Warner just from the perspective of he's kind of the vocal leader out there, and he definitely was trying to fire these guys up, especially in that second half. And 3 passes defended from the linebacker spot. Nobody had more than 1. They had 7 overall. So that's who
He's
I would
definitely a
go with.
tone setter. He is definitely a tone setter out there for sure. I can't argue with that. Again, I I think Nick could be be the
Yeah,
player of the game
he
every
was.
week. He is so impactful in so many ways, but I think I'm gonna go with you on this one and say Warner. Yeah,
The
I like that. That feels right.
I think I would have gone Mitchell and Jimmy as well, kind of right there. And it's not like Mitchell did anything spectacular. He just did what they needed to do, especially late in the game where he was getting those 5 and 6 yard rushes. They put it in his hands, which I thought was kind of impressive in that he hadn't played since week 1, and you just trade everybody for this Christian, and yet late in the game Mitchell's the one who's getting those carries, as they're going down the field. I thought that was kind of cool for him.
Well, he was good last year, but you know, early in this offseason, they basically turned the keys over to him. He was RB1.
Yep.
So clearly they have a real high opinion of him. And now with him being, you know, I would say on A more so than RB2. It's clear that he's got a really, really, even with Christian McCaffrey and everything that he brings to the table, Elijah Mitchell is still he has a prominent role in this offense,
Yeah,
it seems.
absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so next Monday, you will be in Mexico City, correct?
Yes, yes, I will. I am so excited. I'm gonna be doing little dispatches for our little group.
Yes.
From there, I'm gonna try to be play. Hopefully, there are gonna be some places. I was checking them out. In Munich this week. NFL Network was there, and they had all kinds of little stage kind of events for the
Mhm.
fans to kind of do. So I'm hoping there'll be some stuff like that. I can get some video on
Yeah,
the
that'd be awesome.
ground for you guys. And yeah, I'm gonna try to be available for a little bit after the game, just to, even if it's more, not just if it's just to kind of come in as kind of a guest for a little bit. I'm gonna get a SIM card um down there, so internet shouldn't be a problem according to my guy down there. So yeah, I'm gonna be there, and you guys are gonna I'm gonna take you guys with me.
That'll be amazing. The Cardinals themselves, they kind of beat the bumps off the Rams today, and they did it without their starting quarterback. Colt
I
McCoy was 26 for 37 today for the Arizona Cardinals in beating the Rams.
What happened to Kyler? I didn't watch not a minute of that game.
So I'm not exactly sure how Kyler got hurt, but I know as of Friday, there was talk that both quarterbacks, both Kyler and Stafford, weren't going to play. And the thought process, at least from I think I listened to the Ringers guy, Ben Solak, and he was talking to Bill Simmons and saying, if it comes down to both teams not having their star quarterbacks, he would lean towards the Cardinals just because he doesn't think Cliff would go conservative, even if he didn't have his starting quarterback. He thinks Cliff would call similar plays.
Gunslinger.
Yeah. And so, Colt McCoy goes out there and wins this game for them. The Rams is backup. If I gave you 5 guesses, do you think you would know who the Rams backup was?
No.
I did not know who this was either. John Wolford.
He started the game last year, I think.
Okay. Obviously the Rams, they just cannot run the football. The Arizona didn't run it terrifically, but they still had Connor, who scored a couple touchdowns, and DeAndre Hopkins 10 for 98, Rondale Moore 9 for 94. So I don't know what Kyler. While I let you chit chat a little bit about this game, I will look up what's up with Kyler and if he's gonna be back next week. But yeah, they had something today, and not to say that I wouldn't favor the Niners. I think I'd favor the Niners even if Kyler or Colt was playing. But it was kind of interesting to see them as a team kind of rally around, the backup QB like they did, because they've been a bit of a disappointment so far. But they beat the Rams, who's been even a bigger disappointment. The defending Super Bowl champs there.
Yeah, that is it's crazy that it seems to it just seems like it's a regression to the mean. The Rams, their team, they were a team last year that I just looked at and saw they were just so top heavy with the way that they are constructed. But they were able to leverage that into a championship last year. But this year it seems like the chickens have come home to roost. In a manner of speaking, and depth is really a problem for them. And they just aren't a very good football team now. So it's going to be interesting. It was the obviously all the teams in the division could not lose because 2 were playing each other, but we got a little help from the Bucks today.
Yeah.
And so Seattle is technically still in first place, but they are we are tied in the loss column, and we have a win over them. So yeah, it's gonna be a wild ride in the NFC West for the rest of the way, I think.
I was looking for any information. It looks like Kyler had a hamstring injury and he was questionable for the game. Stafford was he's got the concussion stuff going on, so that I think he was a pretty early inactive. But the Arizona Republic guy for azcentral.com, he's like, even if Kyler's healthy, Colt should be the guy. And I'm just like, oh my God, you are hitching your giddy up to Colt McCoy of all people. How long has Colt McCoy been in this league? Colt McCoy has been in the NFL for, come on, where is all of his seasons here? 2010. That's amazing.
It seems like forever ago that Colt McCoy was a 49er. That seems like a lifetime ago.
2013. One completion and 1 attempt. 100% completion percentage for Colt McCoy as a 49er.
What 2013? Who was our coach then?
Harbaugh.
Oh, that was that the last year of Harbaugh?
That's the Super Bowl year.
Oh, okay. There we go.
Yeah.
There we go.
That's Cap, man. All right, so we will. I'm going to ask somebody who may be able to do this show with me next week, and then you can pop in if you can. And so I'll be on the search for a person to sub in for you. But like you said, hopefully you can come through and say hi and such. That'll be great. And looking forward to all of your content in our group. Just you like you said, you're bringing us with you to Mexico City, so that's going to be a whole lot of fun.
Shelvin, paging Shelvin.
I will.
It would
If
be
I
a
could
great
get
time for you to pop on in. I'm telling you, my man. I'm waiting on you. But yeah, it'll be good, you guys.
All right. So for Rod, I am Double G. We will see you when we see you. Peace out.